The question of work standards and the cost of operator inspection is dealt with in the question and answer period.
I assume that what is behind the question is that if you do have work standards, certainly these work standards must have been affected through the implementation of in-process controls that requires the operators to keep these records. Well, what we found at our unit was that the operators in many cases was performing a certain amount of these quality checks before, but now we had asked them to record them. It really didn't take a lot more time in order to do this. As a matter of fact, we found through our statistical analysis that we were shutting down the equipment too often. Because we were shutting down the equipment, we were introducing variables that we should not have been. Our quality has increased through shorter shutdowns than what we had done previously.
McCord Gasket Division is implementing a system which we call failure prevention analysis. The first step in this system is examination of the product to identify potential failure modes. Once these potential failure modes have been identified, process controls are implemented to prevent possible failure. The form calls out part identification and part number, part function, potential failure mode, potential effects of the failure, key characteristics, process controls and process class under existing capability, recommended action and status, action taken, process class under resulting capability, and the responsible activity. The top of the form shows the total involvement of engineering, manufacturing, and quality assurance in this program. Responsible personnel from each department must sign off as a final step.
We worked very closely with Ford Engineering. Initially, when we were setting up our program, I met with the responsible engineers at Ford and discussed the program that we were setting up and explained to them what our goal was, and together we jointly arrived at what the key characteristics of the gasket were.
Now to begin filling in the form. The first step is to define the function of the cylinder head gasket. This gasket's function is to seal engine combustion gases, coolant, and lubricant. Next, we ask ourselves, in what way could the part fail? You could have combustion gas leakage, coolant leakage, or oil leakage. After we have identified the possible gasket problems, we identify what the possible effects on the engine would be for the various failure modes. Combustion leakage may result in reduced engine performance or possible engine overheat, should the leakage be sufficient to cause a boiling out of the coolant. Coolant leakage could result in possible engine overheat. Oil leakage could result in possible engine seizure. The next step in our analysis is to identify the key characteristics of the gasket that could contribute to the possible failure modes. The relationship between possible gasket failure modes and the identified key characteristics are explained in detail to plant personnel. This enables the operators to be aware of defects and their effects on gasket performance.